Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us for our media briefing on this Monday. We have topics of both Dolan fire and some COVID-19 information. We're going to start with the Dolan fire. We're pleased to be joined by Chris Barth, the PIO from the Dolan fire, and I think he's brought a guest with him. Hi, Chris.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. This is Chris Barth. I'm with our Incident Commander, Rob Allen. Just real quick, wanted to update folks. The Dolan fire is currently 118,465 acres. We are at 40% containment and currently at 756 personnel assigned to the fire. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Rob to tell us a little bit about what's happening on the fire.
Yeah, good afternoon, everybody. Pleasure to be here chatting with you today again. Having some really good success on the fire. The whole north end, for the most part, all along Highway 1 from Big Sur here down to the Nacimiento Road is looking really good. We have that in a patrol status now. And actually, we've been able to work with the local Los Padres National Forest folks, and they're going to be staffing that for us so that we can shift our forces around over to the east side and start working on some of the issues we have there. We've been in unified command with the folks at Fort Hunter Liggett, and that southeast corner of the fire is looking really good. We've had a lot of work into that area, a lot of help with them and their machinery and other pieces of equipment and their engines. So that's starting to look good. Our two key points that we're really working on right now is our southwest corner of the fire down there outside of Pacific Valley. Trying to get up to the South Coast Road and then back down to Fort Hunter Liggett. A lot of energy going in up there. Had a couple of really good successful days of doing some backfiring and protecting structures in that area. The marine layer pushed out a little bit last night, and the fire continued to move off the South Coast Road and down towards the PCH. So looking good on that. On this side, our trick now is to try to get it down the east side of that same area. The other place we're putting a lot of energy into, and as of last night at 1800, we also went into unified command with CAL FIRE, and they're working with our folks that are over at the King City camp, and they've brought in some extra resources to help bolster our area there up around Arroyo Seco. As that fire tries to move north, and we're looking at options and places where we can try to hang that fire up and keep it from coming into the community there or spreading any farther to the north towards the Carmel Valley. So there's still a tricky spot up there for us to try to figure out up in that upper corner, but we're being able to shift our resources around to there now, and we'll be working with CAL FIRE to come up with solutions up there over the next few days. And I think that's about it for right now. We are still in the process of moving our incident command post, which is right now here at Big Sur. And towards the end of the week, we'll have moved over to the King City camp. That'll become the new incident command post, so that we're better able to serve the folks on that east side where a lot of our activity will be.
All right, thank you. And I know you guys are typically short on time. So if any of our participants have questions for Chris or Rob, and I've got some coming in right now for you on the Dolan fire. Which direction is the smoke moving?
Today and for the next couple of days, we're still under kind of a south or a southeast flow from the wind. So it's coming up off the ocean and coming up. So it's moving, the smoke is moving to the north towards Monterey, Carmel, Salinas, that area. So that's the direction for now. Later in the week, a low pressure system is going to move in, and it's going to turn and move from the north, and that'll clear the smoke out from there and push it out to sea.
Boy, that's a piece of good news for everyone. Are there any other questions for our Dolan fire participants, either in chat or if someone has a question, because we're going to let them go if there are no more questions? All right, thank you both very much for giving us an update on the fire at noontime. And
yeah, thank you. And again, just wanted to remind folks, if I could, that we do have a virtual public meeting this afternoon at 2 p.m. where we'll be providing an update, and that will be broadcast live on the Los Padres National Forest Facebook page. So thank you for the time, and thank you for accommodating our schedule today.
Thank you very much. And now we're keeping up.
Thank you, everybody. It's a pleasure talking to you.
All right, thank you. And now we're going to keep on the Dolan Fire theme, but onto a topic of cleanup. And we have Rick Encarnacion from our Environmental Health Bureau. A lot of folks, Rick, are very interested in getting in and beginning cleanup, but there's a lot of important information they need to know.
Yes, good afternoon, everybody. Rick Encarnacion, Assistant Bureau Chief from the Environmental Health Bureau. We'd like the public to know to just be aware of some of the precautions to take when dealing with ash in particular. We'd also like people to know, before I get into the details of the ash, we are coordinating with state and federal officials. The county is with getting some assistance with cleanup of ash and debris. US EPA, Cal EPA, and the Department of Toxic Substance Control to remove some of those products at no charge to the homeowner to do cleanup. But in order to do that, we just like people to be aware and take precautions. Be careful not to disturb the ash or debris. It's an irritant, especially if people have asthma. If you are going to come into contact, have the necessary PPE, personal protective equipment. But again, it is advisable to search for assistance with the county as we are coordinating with the state and federal agencies. They are in that coordination to provide free services of cleanup. It is pretty important not to disturb the area as we coordinate these efforts. And more information will be coming with that. I'd like to share our website. I'll put it in the chat from Environmental Health with regards to fire safety and precautions in the aftermath that talks in more details on some precautions for ash and debris. But again, we're coordinating with state and federal officials to provide this service. They're actually headquartered right now. They have a base in Santa Cruz as they're helping also with the Santa Cruz fires. So they're taking on this region to help the residents provide cleanup free of charge. But again, we'd like to emphasize, please take precautions. We're trying to push out as much education to the public through our public information officers like Maya, as well as our websites. Please check out our websites for information, more information to come on cleanup efforts. And with that, I can take any questions if you like.
Thank you very much, Rick. Rick's going to stay with us because we're going to pivot to COVID-19 information. For those of you who are also have questions for Dr. Moreno is going to be on the call. He doesn't have a presentation, but he is available to answer questions. But now we're going to pivot to COVID-19, and Rick is going to stay with us because we're going to talk about an update on the mask enforcement effort that Environmental Health has been working on.
Yes, for the mask ordinance that came out in late August, it actually is an ordinance that allows the county to apply the citation process for not wearing face coverings in the unincorporated areas. So the Environmental Health Bureau, which again is staffed by your health specialists, your environmental health specialists, your health inspectors, we've gone out to a multitude of facilities, starting with the North County area. We have about 2,000 facilities, health permitted facilities to visit. And of that, so far in the past 2 weeks, we visited 950 places. And we have a series of follow-ups for people or businesses that have we're not wearing masks, basically. But for those first visits, we did provide masks as an education effort. We provided handouts, we provided diagrams, instructions on proper mask wearing. And if after a series of educational opportunities, we do have the authority to implement citation administrative fines, which range from $100 to $500. And if you are a facility that has a health permit that's required to operate, you will also be subject to an administrative hearing where the permit may also be subject to suspension. So we want to take the educational approach, but due to the seriousness of the situation, we also want to make sure that there's adherence to something as simple as the mask ordinance or wearing of face coverings to help move the county from where we're at today to a place where we can slowly open up the economy. So we find it very important to go out and provide this educational and accountability enforcement opportunities. So of the 900 facilities that we visited, there was about 62 that needed a second visit. Of those 62, 13 required a third visit. And of those 13, only one needed a follow-up. And thankfully, at that time of that fourth visit, that person or that business complied. Otherwise, it would have resulted in a fine. But I'd just like to emphasize, we're just not doing a series of 1, 2, 3, 4 visits. This is, again, very serious, and we will always be out in the field, our staff, environmental health. We also have supplemented temporary enforcement officers who also go out to businesses that do not have a health permit, because this ordinance applies to all county in the unincorporated area. Again, we're out there in the field trying to promote the mask wearing and face coverings, especially for businesses that do have a health permit. We see the mass majority of businesses in compliance. I think at this point, it really is incumbent on the public to understand the importance of this so that we can help our businesses to reopen the economy.
Thank you, Rick. And you did mention that you were seeing businesses other than the ones that the health department usually regulates. I wonder if you would say what type of businesses are now falling under your visitations?
Sure. Basically all businesses in the unincorporated areas. So as health inspectors, we regulate all retail food businesses like restaurants and markets, delis, mobile food facilities in all areas of the county. Gas stations that have hazardous materials permits, that's all areas of the county. But we do not regulate locally, for instance, barbershops or hair salons or pet stores or flower shops because they don't have a local health permit. They're probably regulated by the state or other businesses. But since this ordinance applies to basically everyone in the unincorporated area, we've expanded our visits to all businesses. In addition, I'd almost would like to emphasize, we're also have pushed out information to employee housing, the agricultural community, and a special focus on those areas. So we've pushed out specific information, bilingual information to agricultural employee housing. We will provide educational events and close coordination with that stakeholder industry. We're answering questions. So in addition to those visits with businesses, we'll also be visiting agricultural sites as we fan out across the county.
All right, thank you, Rick. And so that is Rick's presentation. And as I mentioned earlier, Dr. Moreno is on the call to be able to answer questions if there are any. I don't have any questions in chat at this time, except for the one that just showed up. Thank you very much. Perfect timing. So Dr. Moreno, I've got a question for you. On Friday, you said that a possible reason for the fewer daily COVID cases in Monterey County is that some people who had tested positive for the virus are no longer getting repeat tests. Are you saying that the more than 9,000 cases in the county do not only include new cases, but also cases in which people have tested positive more than once, and in some case, perhaps 3 or more times? And if you want me to repeat parts of that, I'll be happy to.
All right, thanks, ma'am. Now, the cases that we report on are deduplicated. So if someone has more than one positive test result, it doesn't show up as an additional case. What I was referring to was the fact that I was just giving one example of the decreased, I guess the eagerness and willingness of people to come for testing. There have been instances where people in Monterey County have been coming to get tested for a variety of reasons. That was just one reason, but I thought that was an indicator, could be an indicator of how willing people are at the time to come get tested repeatedly. It's not just them, but there are people who come and get tested negative, and they come back again and get tested negative, and maybe tested negative 3 times and then get tested positive. So in recent months, I think there's been a lot of willingness and eagerness on part of Monterey County residents to get out there and get tested frequently and repeatedly for a variety of reasons. That was just an example that I gave. And so as people finally get test positive, or they realize that they don't need to come back for repeat testing once they're positive, that may be one of the contributing factors for decreased testing, not just in Monterey County, but across California. So thanks, Matt.
Are there any other questions for Dr. Moreno? And so I've got one here. How do Monterey County's metrics currently measure up to the state's threshold for reopening business? And Dr. Moreno, I think this is also an opportunity for you to explain. Tomorrow we should be getting some more information.
Sure. So yes, we still follow local metrics, and that's for our local purposes in working with hospitals and healthcare providers, and to continue to do our best to assess the extent of transmission of COVID-19 in our community. The decisions, the metrics that are being used to place Monterey County and other counties in the newly introduced tier framework are determined by the state. And so those are, today is Monday, so we're at the end of the most recent week of collection of data. And tomorrow, the California Department of Public Health will reissue its weekly report on the status of each county's positivity rate and case rate. And that will not include this most recent week. It will include the prior week, and that will determine with an adjustment possibly to our case rate, that will determine into which tier Monterey County falls. And the California Department of Public Health website has details about the businesses that can be open in tier 1, which we are in, and tier 2, which is red tier, which we're hoping, as Rick and Carnacion mentioned, with ongoing efforts by county residents, county visitors, and our businesses, we hopefully will be able to reduce transmission of COVID-19, which in turn reduces the case rate and positivity rate, which in turn could lead us qualifying to move into tier 2 or the red tier.
All right, thank you. And I have another question for you. When will the health department begin considering school waivers, and what and how can schools and districts do to prepare for when the health department does start considering issuing waivers?
All right, well, thank you for the question. So I do encourage, and I have encouraged schools to prepare their waiver applications. That is because the process of preparing a waiver application includes many steps, including conferring with parents, conferring with employees, conferring with generally the school community to make a determination as to whether or not the school community, whether the superintendent on behalf of the school community wants to submit a waiver. The earliest there are waivers that I believe are being prepared, and we are unable to approve any waivers at this time because our case rate exceeds 14, which is twice the state's threshold for case rate. And so that doesn't mean that schools cannot prepare their waivers. I think they should. If our case rate drops below 14, my understanding is that even though we're in tier 1, schools could then submit their waivers for consideration by us here at the local level, and also California Department of Public Health, to open their schools for in-person instruction, either fully or in part, depending on what the school has included in their waiver proposal. If we do move into tier 2, then we would, schools would be able to exercise their option for restarting in-person instruction, and no waiver would be necessary. However, the schools would still need to follow the state guidance that has been issued on how to open up schools for in-person instruction and still reduce the transmission of COVID-19 in the community and in their school community, and also how to respond quickly to individuals who have symptoms of COVID-19 or have tested positive for COVID-19 in those schools.
All right, thank you. And then another question for you. Do you expect Monterey County will change to a less restrictive tier tomorrow when the state announces the latest data? Also, I want to clarify, will last week's data be included in the state's evaluation? And the reporter is suggesting from September 6th to September 12th.
Yeah, so thank you, Mia. So I don't know whether we're going to meet the state's criteria by case rate or positivity rate. However, I have looked at the CDPH website, and I have not yet found reports on the CDPH website from prior reporting periods. So my suggestion would be, if anyone's thinking about tracking this over time, they probably would need to take their own notes and make their own copies of any reports CDPH puts out to track this over time, as we are.
All right, thank you. That's all the questions that I have in chat. And are there any, before we let Dr. Moreno or Rick go, are there any other questions for them, either in chat or anyone with a question they want to ask? Giving it a second, and none. Thank you very much, both of you, for joining us on the media briefing today. Our next briefing will be Friday, and we'll see you then.
All right, thank you, Mia.
Thank you.